Welcome to the Derelict Podcast. For the disparaged, depleted, and delinquent souls trying to find our way, we're talking about the scary part of the journey, where we don't know how it'll end. Let's be free to face our fucking failures in real time as the most unadulterated, truest version of who we are. No sugarcoating. Welcome to the shit show, you derelict.
So I guess the main question on my mind is why start a podcast about failure, which by definition will ultimately fail?
Well, Josh, that's a great question. I feel like the failures in my life have been a proving grounds, an iron forge to bring me to this moment.
This moment exactly right now?
Well,
having a failure podcast with me?
Yeah. I mean, what else are we doing with our lives if not for this podcast?
It's true. It is the only thing in my life keeping me going.
So I came up with a couple funny titles, I thought, too. The first one that came to mind, by the way, that I liked the best, we don't have to take it, but it's just the one I liked the best, was Derelict Dads. I thought that one was hilarious.
Okay.
Think about it. But I really just started thinking about, well, why do I even want to do this podcast? I feel like I have a pretty big vision of what I want to accomplish in my life and who I have passion to help, which even includes this podcast, frankly, and talking about, failure with people that are not willing to talk about it or not willing to consider it or think that they're the only ones out there that could be in the middle of a quote unquote failure and that no one else will understand because they jump on social media or they hear their friends talking and, a lot of the noise out there is just all the quote success. Like, look at all these millions of dollars we have. Look at the fact that I have a perfect body. Look at the fact that I'm doing amazing in my company, etc. And I think I really have a heart for people that don't necessarily feel that way or they don't know what to do about it. I have a passionate heart for guys struggling. I'd like to provide resources and help that I didn't have when going through things like my divorce, who to talk to in the middle of failure. There's lots of bad advice out there, and I'm tired of all the success stories or failure then success, aka failure always leads to success, if you follow that. Mm-hmm. People are more willing to face their failure after someone else is vulnerable first. Overall, if I think of this podcast and I think about, well, who would listen to this and why would they listen to it? For me, when I've gone through some of the biggest failures of my life, including my divorce, which I thought was a failure at the time, I wish that I would have had somebody to listen to and resources that I had while going through it, not knowing if it would be okay or not. Not the success stories of, oh, you guys are just going through a hard time and then you'll get back together and then you'll be happily married for 25 years. Like, that's not helpful for me because no one actually knows that's going to happen. I'd rather just listen to somebody that as they're going through the same stuff I am and realize, oh, there's somebody else out there and we don't necessarily have the answer. And that's okay because we discover that through failure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's always a prerequisite, right? That's an interesting question too, to think about. Like, do we have to fail in order to succeed or do we have to fail in order to reinvent ourselves? So that's what I want. I just want space for people to have a community that maybe gave resources that I didn't have when going through that. So, start a podcast about failure that fails. And then what? I mean, how do I pay for groceries for my kids and everything else? I mean, I know it doesn't have to be that extreme, but I think in my mind, sometimes it does. And I've talked to a lot of people over the years that I think it's the same way. It's like, no, I can't do both. I either have to do one or the other. And then for me, sometimes if I have to do one or the other, I realize I need to stay with where I am because of the safety and security of finances and other things. And then I don't try.
The idea of essentially you don't have to succeed at the end of failure is truthful, or you don't have to learn lessons. That would almost end up being like an anti-podcast.
Right.
It's just the thought that came in my mind.
Yeah. That's a show about nothing. That's why it's so perfect.
Yeah.
I will say I've been reading some autobiographies, just biographies in general. Failure is fascinating because I think everyone fails. How you handle that failure seems to be the deciding factor in someone's success. Whether they're willing to admit it, how quick they're willing to admit it, and what their takeaways are.
So pretty much anytime I go to a business conference or anything else, it's always somebody going up there and saying, hey, here's where I've been successful. This is my success. And then they don't really tell you anything about how they got there. They don't really talk about their failures. And it's never somebody talking when they're in the middle of the failure, ever.
It's the highlight reel.
well, what do you even do with the highlight reel? Like, I can't see that person and say, oh, okay, well, now I want to be successful. Like, it doesn't really help me at all. There's nothing for me to do with it.
It gives you a roadmap to success, but it's an incomplete roadmap, right? So they give you, I took this step and then this step and then this step, but it doesn't give you the full picture. So it's not as helpful as when people share more of their failures. But I think when they finally do hear that, you get a glimpse of humility and honesty that it's refreshing, and those people do really well.
That's only for people that are humbled.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to relate.
Oh, got it. I was listening to this billionaire speak the other day who started this company out of her garage. I mean, there's plenty of those stories. And, well, now she's a billionaire, so obviously that was very successful for her. But she talked a lot about how all the people that didn't believe in her and wouldn't endorse her product or do anything with her product, etc., and just told her that it would never work for her. Then all of a sudden, you know, once she did well and sold her company for $1 billion, just came back and was like, oh yeah, we knew it would always work. We just knew it. And that just, I think that's pretty key with what happens.
Did that bother her?
Which part? Them coming back?
Them coming back.
You know, I think the way that I don't know, because I don't know how she actually felt, but what she said was that she definitely had some defensiveness, and there was a part of her that wanted to just say, see, I told you so, you fucker. Like, why didn't you believe me before? But then the other part of her, it just kind of drove her even further to realize this is the reason why I need to listen to my gut of what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people, especially when I first started breaking the mold and quit a decent paying job and became an entrepreneur. My initial launch was rocky. That's a generous way of putting it. I didn't have enough in savings. I underestimated how much I needed and how quickly I would be able to replace my income. I went broke on the first 3 real estate deals I did. By the third one, I was
I was waiting for you to bring up real estate. That's great. Okay, now so everybody knows real estate, Tyler is the genius. Okay, continue about your success.
DM me if you want advice.
Oh, God. Did God just DM you after I said that?
I haven't checked. And speaking of God, I had several people tell me that I should consider viewing my failure as a sign from God that I was not in the right career path.
Actually, that's a really good point. What do you think about that statement?
I think it's bullshit.
You think God doesn't want us to fail if there is a God? I'm not going
I think,
if there is a God. Let's just assume universe God, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
I don't think that you can judge signs from the universe in that way. Because if I had quit at that time, then I wouldn't be the train wreck of a success that I am now. I would have been very disappointed in myself if I had quit when people were telling me that that was a sign to quit.
Yeah.
I do think recently I've evaluated a propensity to not be willing to quit when I should. And there is sometimes when you should let things go.
Yeah.
And when you hold on to things, that can be a problem. Like there is a time and a season for everything, and you should be able to let go, whether it's relationships or businesses or hobbies or dreams. There are some times where it's okay to let those go, and you have to be healthy enough to do that. But you should not be doing that because you think the universe gave you a sign or because you didn't get successful as soon as other people thought you should.
I think that's really good.
It still seems like people aren't willing to be just fully vulnerable if they're right in the middle of feeling like they're total failures. It's one thing if they're going through something or they've already gone through it and they've already reached the success, etc.
Well, courageous vulnerability is definitely contagious.
Yeah, it's true.
When I lead and say, yeah, things are falling apart and I don't know what the solutions are and I haven't come out the other side, I'm not sure when I will, then it's unbelievable what the high percentages of people that just respond with, I'm there right now, or I was just there and I wish I had talked about it.
Do you think most people just don't want to be the first one to get naked?
Yeah, it takes courage.
It does. I think for me, part of the difficulty of vulnerability when in the middle of failure is what if that failure doesn't lead to success, quote unquote? Then it seems really difficult to be vulnerable about the failure I'm going through.
Exactly. That is the heart of, I think, the struggle with any failure, and kind of the birth of the idea for this podcast is that it's so much easier to talk about failure if you've already experienced this success or you can visualize the path to success. But it's almost impossible for me to be able to accept and articulate if I haven't bundled it and packaged it yet.
Right. Because then what do you do with that failure or that vulnerability of that failure if there's no success at the end? Right. Like we've talked about before, it's a lot easier, let's say, for somebody to get up on stage or get on a podcast or write a book or whatever about their immense success. It's easy for them to talk about the failures because the failures all led to, hey, I, sold $1 billion company, or hey, I created, the internet thanks to Al Gore or whoever. Right. But what about all the vulnerability of the failures when you're in the middle of failure? I mean, what about all the failures that don't lead to success, quote unquote? That to me, I think is why it's difficult for me to talk about failure in the middle of it, because I don't really know where it's going to go. And then I fear that it's not going to go somewhere well. And then I fear that people are going to judge me for that because I don't know where it's going to go.
I think the fear that you just identified, what if failure doesn't lead to success, is a mindset that can be reframed to say all failure leads to some kind of success, but it often is not the success that we have roadmapped. But even if it's just lessons learned and internal self-awareness, there is so much treasure in failure. And I think 90% of it has to do with our mindset and how we are able to process it. It's just, and you can have a great attitude about it in time, but it's even harder to then also be able to articulate that to others.
Yeah. What do we do with quote failure when it doesn't lead to quote success? And I think that depends on how you define the word failure. It also depends on how you define the word success. Because to me, failure is just another, if I can actually think in a very healthy way, failure is just another opportunity for me to get to the next stage of my life. So it's always success. It's always successful going through something, being courageous and trying something and then it not working, said a different way, right? But I think our society, success is always, hey, do you have millions of dollars and millions of fans and followers and fill in the blank?
Well, and there's only one way to ensure that your failure does nothing for you. And that is if you get bitter, refuse to take responsibility, and give up.
Sure.
If you do those three things, then failure is just plain failure. And I know lots of people that have chosen that path, and they talk about their shot that they took back in the 80s and it didn't pan out. And that's the end of their story in their mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
To your point, though, one of the reasons it's hard to share failure with people is because of the ramifications. So you talk about clients or even friends and family. There's a risk to being completely vulnerable that a lot of times I evaluate and I say it's not worth it. So I intentionally frame things in a way that makes me appear less risky than I really am. I'm willing to share the illusion of vulnerability. I'm willing to share failures once I've figured out how to frame the narrative in a way that doesn't make someone lose trust in me.
Oh, yeah. That actually makes a lot of sense.
I think middle age bracket of, what do you want to say, late 30s, 40s?
No, it starts at 40. I'm not middle-aged yet.
Sure. I think that I've noticed a very big difference in my ability to process those questions that you just mentioned, because I feel like time has more value and there is more of an urgency and a pressure. And there's more of a pressure because there's more obligations with, having a family. There's more pressure because I don't want to waste my life. It's a lot different. Like in my 20s, it's like, who cares if I have so many other chapters to live. And I don't think it's until you get a little further on in life until you realize that these chapters are fairly short and finite. And a decade can go by in a blink.
Right. And to your point, now when you're getting into that, let's say mid 40 range, on a traditional scale, that's halfway through your working years, right? So when you get to the point where you're like, and I'm not saying people don't retire when they're 40, they obviously do. People retire when they're 80, people will never retire, right? But on a traditional scale where you're going to retire in your mid to late 60s, that is right in the middle. So I think that's another reason why these, quote unquote midlife crises happen with careers, and probably what I'm going through right now is that you start thinking like, I'm halfway through my working career. Do I want to continue to do the same thing for the next half? Is this really what I want out of my life?
Yeah, there's you have these battling pressures of, am I willing to sacrifice the security of what I've built at the expense of my obligations or the comfort that I'm used to? So you have that pressure of, oh, I actually have things that are important to me that I need to feed and take care of, and bills to pay that are important, that I find important to pay. And that can be adjusted. But the reality is that there's some of those things that are just there, and there's pressure, like you can't just blow them off. And then the other competing one, pressure, is what you just said about like the time is finite, and what am I doing with my life, and am I really enjoying, and am I getting fulfilled by what I'm doing? You can separate those, and you can say, oh, this pays the bill and this feeds up the passion bucket. And you hear people talk about it all the time. It doesn't have to be the same thing. No, it doesn't. But when you do a map of how much time you spend in your week, work takes up 80% of your time spent in a week. So if you're not passionate about it, that's a lot of time to spend to something that doesn't bring you joy.
Yeah, absolutely it is. I mean, I'm not a fan just because I'm critical, but I see, I'm sure you've probably seen that poster. Maybe you haven't. I don't know. I see it on social media all the time with just, it's like little pictures of people and how many weeks you have left in your life just on a big poster. And I think the whole point of that poster is to show you that time is finite, like you said. And I just think the older that I get, the more I think about that, and the more I think about exactly what you just said. And that is, you're right that you don't have to do something that you're passionate about for work. But if the average person in America or anywhere else or that's listening to this podcast, the average person is going to spend the majority of their time on any category, more time than they're going to spend, generally speaking, raising their kids, more time they're going to be spending eating, more time that they're going to be spending volunteering, whatever it is, it's going to be work unless you just are in that situation where you're only working a couple hours a week or you're retired or something else. So for me, it's just gotten to a bigger point of, well, why? Why am I continuing to do something that I'm not just 100% on fire for? And I think for me, a lot of the times it comes with safety and security and money and, the things that we also have to worry about. Like, I still want to feed my kids. So I get that. I don't necessarily want to like sell my big house and move into some small one or move in the back of a bus or, whatever the other option is.
No, I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to do the things I like to do.
It feels to me like I haven't met that many people, I don't think, on the planet that are able to do just what they're 100% passionate about and have it pay all the bills and have it give them this outstanding life. I mean, literally, I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan, and I think he's that guy, and he's helped other people become that guy or that gal as well. But it seems like a rarity to me. I don't know. How many people do you think that are in that bucket? 100%.
Very few. I mean, I know people that really enjoy what they do, but it's not like they say, I enjoy making money to be able to do all this other stuff, and what the power that money gives me to be able to do good in the world. That's what I'm passionate about. I know more people that are like that than people that say the thing that happens to make me really a lot of money is also the very thing that I'm passionate about. That's hard to find. I think that if you can find a way to leverage your skills and abilities where you feel like they're being valued and utilized without it dominating your life and your energy and your time, then you have the ability to take the money that's generated and go do things you're passionate about to do good in the world. But too many people, the thing that they choose to make money just takes too much energy and time away for what it gives. I think that's where problems come.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Well, thanks, Tyler. It's been a joy as always. I'm so excited to launch this podcast with you and can't wait to see where it goes. And thank you, as always, to our listeners. We are so excited to launch this journey with you. As we get started, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. This is super helpful to us. Thank you so very much. Listen in to our next episode, A Guide to Staying Present, available now. Until next time, see you later, you derelict.